So we've learned about asking questions. Feel free to sing this song. And so we talked about questions that were on the surface, questions that take us below the surface, and then questions that take us beyond the book. On the surface, below the surface, or even beyond the book questions are great for when we're reading fictional texts. However, when we start to think about nonfiction texts, a different way to question works a little bit better. Nonfiction texts are texts that provide factual information about a subject for a variety of purposes. The emphasis here is on real people, real places, real things, real ideas. It's all about real-world connections. And so when we're working with what's going on in the real world and we're considering nonfiction texts, there are three big questions for us to keep in mind. Because a work of nonfiction will try to assert something about our world. And in that case, we need to be skeptical about these assertions. So we ask questions when we read. Now you might be asking yourself, what does skeptical mean? Basically, being skeptical means you're not easily convinced or you might have doubts or reservations. It's important then when we read nonfiction texts that we not always assume everything we read is true, valid, or correct. And so this is where questioning can help us. Therefore, I'm going to teach you a strategy that I use when I question nonfiction texts. I develop a questioning stance. When I read nonfiction, I'm thinking about this. What surprised me as I read? And I have some great thinking stems to help. For example, I can note I was shocked about. I was surprised when. I never thought. I could not believe. Really? A second big question that I keep in mind when I'm reading nonfiction is, what did the author think I already knew? We have schema. Schema is everything we know. It's kind of like having little file folders in our head. And when we learn new things, we put them into our schema. When we change our schema, we might take something out of our file folder and replace it. And so I'll use these thinking stems. I did not know. I was confused by. The author assumed, or the author thought I knew. There is a third question that I keep in mind. What challenged, changed, or confirmed what I already knew? Sometimes I get a big aha. I didn't know that. Other times I might need to revise what I already knew because it might change my thinking. Or sometimes I get that, yep, I knew that, I confirmed. And so these thinking stems help me. At first I thought, I had to rethink. My understanding changed when, or I was right or wrong about something. And so here are the three big questions that I use when I read nonfiction texts. As third graders, however, let's focus on this one. What surprised me? And I'm going to have you practice using this big question and these thinking stems. So now it's your turn. You're going to get a collection of 6 short texts, and they are all about departments in our government. We have the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Department of Justice, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Health and Human Services. As you read each article, remember to keep that questioning stance in mind. As you read, you will have a few post-it notes already available to you with what surprised me on it. You can use those thinking stems to note any details that surprise you. After you're finished reading the text and reading with that questioning stance in mind, you're going to focus just on the last piece, that Department of Transportation. There's a Google form available for you in the classroom for you to first put your name and then answer the questions. Be sure to go back in the text and check the details as you look for evidence to support those answers.